My name is Julie Cavanagh. I am a special education teacher at PS 15 in Red Hook, Brooklyn. And I started my career in 2000 in Indiana and taught there for a year and then came to PS 15 in 2001. I taught until 2009 in a 4th and 5th grade first year inclusion and then self-contained children mostly with learning disabilities and emotional disabilities. Then in 2009, I actually moved to same building, but a specialized class for children with intellectual disabilities who actually take alternate assessment as opposed to the traditional state standardized assessment. And that was a conscious decision. I felt as a teacher of children with special needs and learning differences in a 12 to 1 to 1 setting that it sounds like hyperbole and dramatic, but I really felt like I was participating in child abuse. And after doing it for so long, I felt that I needed to change and couldn't participate in it anymore. Moved to the ID class where children didn't have to take these tests. And as I'll talk about later, I'm now experiencing all of this again because they've now aligned Common Core to the alternate assessments for children with intellectual disabilities, so I'm being hit with it all again this year. So when I started teaching in 2000, I don't even remember administering tests. I know we did at some point, it wasn't an event. In 2001, when I came to New York City, it was 3 days of ELA, 3 days of math. For my 4th graders, 2 days of ELA, 2 days of math for my 5th graders. By the time I left the 12 to 1 to 1 class for 4th and 5th grade in 2009, I counted 15 administration days of standardized tests, and that doesn't include the other things that folks have talked about, the practice test, the test prep, and the actual assessments that were meaningful that I was giving. In addition to all of that, the climate also changed, the pressure changed. These tests carried these high stakes and this new meaning. They weren't being used for their intended purpose, to give me information and to drive instruction so that I could better serve my children. They were about promotion. They were about the quality of my principal, the quality of my school. They were tied to funding. We piloted a bonus program at my school. If we all got our test scores up, every teacher in my school would get $3,000. They were tied to this mythical teacher report card that would later be released in the New York Post and the Daily News, and teachers would have reporters knocking on their doorsteps. They are now being used for teacher evaluations. And most disturbingly, it really seems that they're being used to judge a student's worth. And all of this is just wrong. I wanted to really talk about special education because in the world of education, often children with special needs and learning differences aren't discussed enough, and enough attention is not being paid to this population and the devastating impact on them, particularly under corporate education reform and high-stakes testing. So children with special needs are divided into 2 groups in terms of the world of testing. Certain children take the traditional standardized tests that their same-age peers take. These are children with learning disabilities, other health impairments, emotional and behavioral needs. And then there's another category of children who are alternate assessment. And these children, for a variety of reasons, because of significant cognitive delays, whether it be an intellectual disability or a child who has autism or a myriad of other things, they take an alternate assessment from the state. And the way the alternate assessment works is there are sort of essences or extensions of the traditional grade level standards, and then there are tasks or assessments created by the teacher on these extensions and essences. In terms of the group of children with special needs who take the traditional standardized test, it's really the definition of insanity. When I taught the 4th and 5th grade 12 to 1 to 1, these are students who have a variety of learning differences and need a variety of supports in order to be able to access their same age curriculum. And certainly that was always my intention as an educator and the intention of good schools and good teachers. You want to give children with learning differences access to the same thing that their same age peers have, same curriculum, same experiences. But understanding that the developmental level is going to be different. So it's differentiated, you're providing different accommodations and modifications, and maybe the expectation or the outcome is slightly modified. Given all of that, that's best practice for special education. On testing day, you sit them down with the same test that their same age peer has, last year in particular, way above the level that they are at, or even the level that they're in that grade. And the main accommodation they receive is extra time. So great, now you've put this thing in front of me that's way too hard, and I don't have to sit here for an hour and a half to do it. I have to sit here for 3 hours and do it with no break, no snack, no water, no nothing. So when I say that I felt like it was child abuse, it's not an exaggeration. That's how I really felt, and it's what I believe, and I believe that it's wrong. In terms of the children who qualify for alternate assessment, generally you have to test below a 70 on IQ test to be able to qualify for alternate assessment. Now that the alternate assessments are aligned to Common Core, the way that it looks is there are 5 essences for ELA, there are 5 essences for math. The teacher is supposed to examine a continuum of less to most complex extensions for each essence, and then, based on that, you're supposed to choose a selection of tasks aligned with that continuum. And then you have to develop each of those tasks for each of the students in your class. And you have to administer all of them by the middle of November to create a baseline. And then you have to administer them again. It could either be the same task or a different one by January. And then you have to enter all of that online by the beginning of February, and in addition, create a hard copy in a binder. And we don't call this a portfolio, we call this a data folio. I wasn't trained in this new thing until the beginning of October. So I had from the beginning of October to the middle of November. I have 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders in my class, so I had to do it across 3 grades. So I had to create 110 original tasks and administer them almost all individually, because my children fall broadly across the spectrum, in 5 weeks' time. So pretty much for that 5 weeks, I didn't eat lunch. I didn't participate in any professional development or professional meetings during that allocated time. And the beautiful curriculum mapping that I did all summer long went out the window, because now this new thing existed that I had to get done. So here I am, I find myself again basically subjecting these kids that I love to this thing that's not good for them, doesn't benefit them, doesn't give me the information that I need, which is supposed to be the purpose of assessments. I think it's really important when we're thinking about testing and assessments to think about that purpose. What are they for? And how that purpose has been perverted. And it's widely accepted in the science community and the statistics community that you cannot use a tool for something other than its intended purpose. And when you do that, the information that you collect is invalid. So when we talk about using tests for teacher evaluation, any scientist or statistician is going to tell you these tests were not created for that purpose. That information is not valid for that purpose. I think it's important to remember that there's so much of what counts that cannot be measured. And I think about the students in my room. I have a student who you can lay out shapes, angles, objects, colors, categories, animals. You could give him 100 objects on a table, and within 15 minutes, less, he could sort every single one of those objects into categories. These objects have a certain number of lines. These objects have a certain number of angles. These are animals that live on a farm. These are colors. All these different things into multiple categories. He can't speak a word. He can't write a sentence. He can't add 4 + 4. but he has this beautiful talent in this very specific thing, and it can't be measured. Nobody cares. I have another student, amazing actress, amazing dancer. She just lights up a room when she walks in it. Everyone loves her. She can't write a sentence. She knows her numbers 1 to 10. All of these alternate assessment tasks, they don't measure the beautiful gifts that she has. So I think it's really important to think about the purpose. Why are we doing this? What is assessment for? And also, what are the ways that we're talking about our children and encouraging those talents? As a teacher, I think Michelle Gunderson, who is a really amazing and wonderful educator and activist out of Chicago, and she's a member of the CORE caucus in Chicago, the Chicago's Teachers Union. She came up with this thing called a data pledge, and I think it's something that teachers really have to start considering as a way of exercising resistance. Parents have the power to really create a movement around opt-out or other alternatives. Educators are in a more difficult position because this is our jobs. But there are ways that we can resist. And there's 3 points in this data pledge that she created that I think are really important. And they are, I will not refer to my students as data points. I will not share or publish their data, except for with their parents and individual child. And I will not offer rewards or punishments based on data. And so as this conversation later moves towards alternatives and what we can do to fight back, I think these softer points of resistance are something that are really important for educators as we also think of the larger things that we can do to change course. Thank you.